Welcome back, Wanderers, to another episode of the Corner Story and Game. Today rounds out our 4 Getting Ready for GenCon episodes, and we're chatting with Mark Meer. Known far and wide for his role as the male Commander Shepard in BioWare's Mass Effect series. He's also an incredibly successful improv actor and a regular live play actor on various streaming platforms. So today we're going to be exploring all the exciting things he's likely doing at GenCon right now. This includes running a D&D game, taking part in a live-action Call of Cthulhu game called the Ravenly Collection, and his role as the Keeper of Arcane Lore for another Call of Cthulhu game. Mark, it's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
I am really excited to sit down. You're just heading out the door right away here to head to GenCon, and in fact, by the time this gets into people's ears, there's a good chance you're sitting at a table somewhere by then, so it'll be close. I might get it out tomorrow still. We'll see.
Sitting at a table or walking through crowds.
There is that. Mm. All right. Well, but that's what we're here to talk about is GenCon. I want to get your take. I've talked to Matt Forbick, I talked to Jim Zub, and I talked to Richard Dansky. I got different points of view on the big convention, but a game master, voice actor, live play guy who's in there in the mix, doing some Call of Cthulhu, doing some D&D, that'll be great. But before we jump into it, for the people who don't know who you are, the 3 of them, and the people who haven't listened to your previous episode, can you give us a Cole's Notes of who is Mark? How did you fall in love with acting, writing, gaming, all of this? Just give me a quick one.
Gaming came first. I went to school. I've talked about this in interviews before, but I went to school in a small town in Alberta that had nothing resembling a drama program, certainly once you got to junior high and high school and above. So Dungeons & Dragons was my creative outlet. It was my first improv experience, my first acting experience, my first writing experience. So I came to D&D first, and in many ways, it was my gateway drug into acting in general.
All right. Very cool. Yes. So if anybody wants to get a little deeper into Mark Meer's background, how you got into it all, I have an episode. I will have a link. You can go back and listen to it. Alberta boy done well. So you make my heart bigger. So it's fantastic. All right. Well, let's dig into the core subject here. Let's start broad. Let's start with your history at GenCon. How many times have you gone? When did you start going? What keeps you coming back?
My first GenCon was actually the first big American convention I ever attended. Was in 1987. So I managed to convince my parents that we should go to Milwaukee for a weekend in the summer. They weren't going to let me go alone. So they saw the wonders of Milwaukee while I was playing D&D. I think they went to the zoo. They took my sister as well. And, so they were good sports about that. So that was my first GenCon experience, was 87. And that, it blew my mind. Because again, coming from small town Alberta, I'd never seen that kind of scope of nerdery. It was all around me. And I came back laden with many, many things, posters that hung on my bedroom wall for years after that. I think they're probably still up there in my parents' old house. And, picked up, issues of White Dwarf magazine because I was, a regular reader of Dragon, but I'd never had an issue of White Dwarf. So, miniatures and everything. I came back laden with lots of stuff. And I was in the cosplay contest that year, just, again, there wasn't really much cosplay in Alberta back in those days. So it was a real eye-opener for me, and I loved it. That said, sadly, I did not get a chance to revisit GenCon until many years later as an adult. I think it was after I did D&D Live in 2018, which was such an amazing experience, the eyes, and met lots of folks and made a lot of new friends. And it was actually another friend of mine that I knew from improv, Matt Young, who I'd just been to that in, I want to say it was June of that year. And then Matt said, "Hey, I'm going to GenCon. You want to go?" And it's like, yes, I do want to go back to GenCon. By then, of course, I was quite familiar with conventions and had done DragonCon for many, many years. For, about 20 years at that stage, because I started going to DragonCon in 1998 as a fan. And going back to GenCon was fantastic. It was different from my current GenCon experience because I just went on a whim and had no responsibility. So it was just like, just go and I'll play some games and hang out and see friends and drink beer. And so that's what I did for the first couple of years. And then people started inviting me to do, actually that year, I think I even dropped in on a few like streamed games and things like that. Again, folks that I'd met at D&D Live. And gradually, my responsibilities at Gen Con have increased, and now I'm basically doing, it's like a con. I do panels, and I run games now for D&D in a Castle. That's what I'll be doing this year, running a couple games for them, running a Call of Cthulhu game for Chaosium, and also doing what I'm very excited about. I get to do a Call of Cthulhu LARP with the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. And if you're familiar with them at all, you know that they do amazing work. So getting to actually be involved in one of their LARP experiences, adapted for a convention setting, of course, because they're the sort of people that usually play in actual haunted houses and locations like that. So we'll be in a ballroom this time, but it's going to I don't want to spill any beans because, of course, there are going to be people playing it, but it is set at an auction of occult artifacts that is taking place on New Year's Eve, 1924. So yeah, and I've got my character dossier. I'm learning all the stuff that my character should know, and really looking forward to that. I'll also actually, one of the first things that I do at Gen Con this year will be a playtest of Starfinder Second Edition. The folks from Paizo have invited me along for that, and I'll be doing that with my friend Mr. B. Dave Walters, my dungeon master from the Black Dice Society. So we'll be playing together in that. And because it's a space science fiction game, I am playing a legally distinct character by the name of Commander Goatherd. He's entirely legally distinct from any other character you might be thinking of. But I think we'll have fun with that.
That sounds amazing. Nothing ever goes wrong at auctions for occult items. It's always smooth.
Always very smooth. If anyone has watched Bookshops of Arkham, that's a factor in that game as well. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing the props that the H.P. Lovecraft Society has put together, because that's where they really they excel at that, and really all areas of LARP. So I look forward to it.
That'd be so cool. So that's the Ravenly, right? The Ravenly collection.
Yes, the Ravenly collection.
Right on.
That is the title of the event, and I think Chaosium has their 1920s New Year's Eve room basically all convention. So that, and I think they even have like Cthulhu champagne flutes and things like that. So yeah, it's all going to be very themed, very themed.
That's amazing. As a big fan of Cthulhu, everything Cthulhu, that would be so cool.
And beyond that, I'll also get to do, we talked about Bookshops of Arkham, Graveyards of Arkham, its sequel. Myself and some of the cast are going to be at the the Chaosium booth on, I want to say Saturday. I think it's Saturday at 2. So we'll be there for, autographs and chatting about Call of Cthulhu and that sort of thing.
Very cool. So you're running the Call of Cthulhu game?
Yes.
You're taking part?
Yeah, one Call of Cthulhu game for Chaosium that's open to the public, so people have signed up to play that. I'll be doing the LARP on Saturday night. I will be running 2 different games for D&D in a Castle. They've got a bunch of the DMs that usually go to the castle. This is a way to have D&D in a castle outside of a castle.
There you go.
And I will mention that my tables are sold out, but there are a few precious seats still available at some of the other DMs, so you can check those out. By the time this airs, it might be too late for any of this, but who knows?
We're going to cut it close. We'll see what we can do. Okay, so that's the games you're playing in and running in. I'm curious, what makes running a game at a big convention like that, what makes that experience unique and different than running a game at a smaller convention, or a game at home, or a game at a tournament or something? What makes a Gen Con game special?
Well, it's just, the nexus of nerddom, really. Like it's just the scope and size of it. When you're at the table, it's you and 6 players, of course. Mm-hmm. Like that's something that all of those experiences share. But say just the general excitement and the buzz, and people have come looking for that kind of role play and concentrated role play experience. Because if you're just going as an attendee, you've probably got 3 or 4 games booked per day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the fact that the players and probably the GMs as well have spent more time in a fantasy or pretend world than they have in the real world, that sort of enhances it a little bit.
How do you get ready for something like that when you're the GM or the Keeper of Arcane Lore? How do you prepare yourself for something like this?
Well, I'll actually be going over today, as a matter of fact. I've read it, of course, but I'm going over the Call of Cthulhu adventure that I'll be running with my wife, who is one of the writers of it.
Nice.
It's called Tides of Eaglesea, which is set on not New Year's Eve, but Robbie Burns' night. And that we've read it a few times for a Sword and Scroll, which is the sort of online arm of D&D in a castle. And I've never actually run it before as a keeper. I've been an NPC in it, and I play tested it back, well over a year ago now. But this will be my first time running through it as keeper, so that's one way that I'll be preparing for that game. My D&D games, they're ones that I wrote, so I'm pretty familiar with the material. So the prep for that is essentially making sure that I have all the minis that I was, and the terrain I'm bringing. I'm bringing like 2 suitcases. There's so much stuff. There's no need for it either, but I want to make it special. I want to use all the toys, things like that. Yeah, of course, you can run a game theater of the mind, but again, it's GenCon, so you want to like all the trees and things like that. So yeah, basically, I have spent the last day looking through boxes like, where did those pine trees go? I used them for something. Oh, that mini. I used that in another game, so it's in the box with that stuff. So just assembling everything. Beyond that, because it's a game that I've run before, I'm pretty happy to just jump into that one. Make sure if I've got all the toys, then I'm ready to go.
I know.
With a game that I'm running for the first time, I'll read and reread it several times, and probably on the plane trip as well. Like I've got a red eye, so I'll have plenty of time to, and sitting around at airports, so there'll be plenty of prep time for that. And of course, there's the LARP, which I think I am probably most keen to have down pat because it's a LARP, so you can't just be like, hold on a sec, let me look something up. Yeah, I want to know everything. Also, to make sure that I don't derail everything by just improvising something that contradicts, the entire basis of, of the game or someone else's character. Yeah, it's like Christmas, you're just getting everything ready, everything set up. Actually, it's more like Halloween, getting ready for Halloween.
It kind of sounds like opening night at the theater. Like you're getting
there's an aspect of that as well.
Right on. So first of all, mention your wife, Belinda, incredibly talented.
Yeah,
so that's where very obviously you do. You have to say that.
No, she's not here. I can say whatever I want.
But I'm curious.
And so, yes, very talented.
I'm going to show my ignorance for a second. Robbie Burns, I always thought that was a Canadian thing. Robbie Burns. Is it? Okay, there you go.
But of course, the influx of Scottish immigrants, of course, brought Robbie Burns here.
All right. There you go. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. And yes, tell your wife I think she's very talented.
I will.
So the LARP, costuming and props, is that done for you? Are you bringing your own costume and like without giving anything away, of course?
There are certain props that are going to be provided for me, and they've let me know the parameters. I was actually looking into like, maybe I can get a vintage tux. But given the demands of the game, I might not go with that. I do have a tux of my own, so I can bring that. And tuxedos are, the cut changes from decade to decade, but it'll be close enough, I think, rather than take the chance of ruining a vintage tux which I've rented.
Yeah, good call.
And it is New Year's Eve after all, so you got to dress up. That's right.
And it is Call of Cthulhu, so you might get stuff on it. So
yes,
excellent call.
Yeah, all manner of things.
This all sounds absolutely amazing. So for those of us who can't make it or were going to make it and had to cancel last minute, please feel sorry for me, everyone. What some suggestions to avoid the FOMO, the regret? Are there things we can pay attention to, streams we can look at? I don't know.
I do know that Gen Con itself is going to be streaming. I think they usually do. I can't say for sure 100% because I'm usually there. So I'm
right.
But I know there's usually cameras and things like that. So whether it's during the event itself or afterwards, there's usually stuff that goes up on their YouTube channel. I do know that the Starfinder 2nd edition game that I'm doing with B-Dave and Paizo, that's going to be on the main stage. So I think there's probably a very good chance that will be streamed. When I've run some streamed Call of Cthulhu games in the past for Chaosium, those have gone up both on Gen Con's Twitch, and then later they'd be up on the Chaosium YouTube channel. So I think it's a matter of tracking things down on an individual basis. But the Gen Con website is probably the best place to start, and their Twitch channel. and they'll have lots of stuff, I'm sure. The private games, of course, are private, so like those won't be streamed.
Yeah,
but you can combat FOMO by, well, I mean, the best way would just be getting your friends together and playing an RPG.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so aside from the playing and the gaming, to go back to the game mastering, and also to tie into people who want to find some space in the performance part of this industry that is growing slowly over time, do you have any thoughts on the opportunity that GenCon presents to game masters, content creators, as far as both networking or practicing or perhaps classes? Because I know there's some forums on like podcasting, for instance, but there's also ones on running your first live action game, stuff like that. In your opinion, is that worth it? Is that interesting?
I think it could. I mean, in my own experience, I'm lucky enough that, I was in a video game that was very popular. So people invite me to do things. And that's how I got invited to go to D&D at a castle. And now, for example, the D&D at a castle games that are running at GenCon, they set all those up. I didn't have to do anything. I was just like, let them know what scenario I'm running, and they take care of the rest. So I don't know how much practical advice I can offer. I guess the best advice I could offer was be in a popular video game, and then people will invite you and send you I came home from a recording session, and this was waiting on my front step.
Look at you.
Yeah. So Wizards of the Coast sent that direct to me. So that's nice. But of course, in more general terms, of course, Gen Con presents an opportunity for, if you sign up to be a dungeon master and you get accepted, then you've got members of the public coming in and playing. One assumes that you're playing your own scenario, something that you've devised. Some people run pre-written stuff, of course, but a lot of people run their own adventures. That gives you a chance to test run it on people who are that you don't have prior knowledge of. The people, of course, you can play test stuff with your friends, but playing it with strangers gives you new insights into how a given party of player characters might react to various situations. Or with your friends, they might cut you a little slack. The public will probably be a little more discerning.
Right. Excellent points. So it's a good place to practice, to cut your teeth.
Yeah, I think so.
All righty. Okay, well, when you go and you attend and you do these things, do you ever do any pickup games? Like talking to some of the other guys like Matt and Richard, they wander into other games here and there if they have time. Do you ever do that? Do you ever sit down and play something else?
Again, like the first few years that I was going, I was footloose and fancy free. So I'd always just be like, my friend would be like, I got a spare ticket for this game. It's like, great, I've never played that before. Let's go check it out. I played actually 10 Candles for the very first time at Gen Con. And it was not a formal game at all. It was like literally just people like, I've got the game. We've got a hotel room. Let's go play 10 Candles. And it was that year, it was probably the favorite game that I played. It was great. I really enjoyed the system. And I was playing with a bunch of great folks. So yeah, it was a very satisfying gaming experience. Beyond that, I mean, again, I'm busy now, so I probably won't have time for many drop-in games because I'll be running my own and running back and forth and doing panels and things like that. So yeah. Yes.
Right on. Okay, well, in general, what's your favorite part of the convention?
Well, as you can see, I'm a collector of things.
You are indeed.
And so at any convention, the merch room is something I'm always very eager to visit, to go see what the dealers have to offer. This year, I'd say the thing that I'm most excited about this year is the LARP. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Not to say that I'm not looking forward to running my own games, but yes, getting to be an NPC in this is something I'm quite excited about. In general, yeah, any convention, cosplay, of course, I'm a big fan of costumes and things like that, so I would like to see what people have made and brought. And just walking around, just being at a con. It's, we live in a great time for being a nerd. It wasn't always this way. It was not always this way. And I never let myself forget that. It's just like, oh, yeah, no, always cherish what we have. To be about like-minded geeks is always its own reward.
I laughed because I was cleaning the closet 2 days ago, and I pulled out a long box, and on top of the long box was a copy of Infinity Gauntlet 1 with Thanos on the cover. Yeah. And my kids are like, that looks weirdly familiar. And I'm like, sit down, young ones. I want to tell you a story.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a hell of a time to be a nerd. That is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's start wrapping this up. I'm keeping these ones nice and short and tight because we're just getting ready for Gen Con. But, buddy,
Of course.
as a seasoned Gen Con veteran, what advice do you have for newcomers? Somebody this is their first time at the big show.
It's good advice for any convention. I first heard this applied to Dragon Con, but I think it can be applied to any such gathering. Always remember to keep yourself hydrated and properly fed, with nutritious food, not just snacks. And at least one shower a day. It's summertime, and so yeah, just remember all these things. Remember the basics, and the rest will take care of itself.
That is super solid advice. Okay, well, that puts a pin in the Gen Con stuff. I hope.
Oh, and sleep. Get sleep as well.
Sleep. Yes.
Sleep is also important. That's one of the basics.
Yes.
And it's probably the one that goes out the window the easiest. But yeah, try to get a little sleep.
All right. Well, before we head for the door, I've asked you the core question, the philosophical question at the heart of my podcast before. Would you like to do it again? Maybe you have something new, or shall we move on? And
what was the question, and what did I say last time?
I don't remember what you said last time, but
look at the link. Look at the link, folks. But what is the question?
The question is, in my opinion, there's a magical space at the intersection of story and game and everything like improv and comic book writing and board game design and all these things where people can just naturally get together. There's a shared fellowship, spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood. If you agree with me, and not everybody does, but if you do agree with me, what do you think is the magical thread that holds that space together?
I think what I said last time, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might contradict myself completely, but it's pretending, and it's something that we all know how to do. And when you get right down to it, that's what acting is. That's what playing an RPG is. It's collaborative pretending, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. I think it was a variation of the same answer, but I like it. It's a great answer. A couple quick fire questions just to stay on top of what Mark's up to. What are you reading these days?
Let's see. Actually, I did a little bit of rereading. It's something that I picked up a while ago, but are you familiar with Alan Moore's Providence? It's basically Alan Moore's take on the Lovecraft mythos.
No.
I highly recommend it. Very, very good.
I'm actually going to write that one down because I'm a huge Moore fan. How do I not?
Yeah, and of course, he's had Lovecraftian stuff in the past, and you think about the squid from Watchmen.
Yeah.
But this is him like diving into Lovecraft, like it reminded me very much of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was sort of fiction writ large.
Yeah,
that was his take on various characters from British fiction in particular, and I guess French as well. But this is his Lovecraft love letter.
Is it old? Or is it relative?
It's a few years old. It came out. It was one of those ones that was coming out monthly, and I picked up the monthly books and was waiting. And of course, things got delayed, so it was just like it was torture waiting for the next one. I did pick up the collected edition as well when it came out. It might be a little difficult to track down. You may pay a pretty penny, but I suspect, I don't know this for a fact, but you might be able to get it on like Comixology or something to have it digitally.
Yeah,
probably the easier way of getting it. Get Kindle version or whatnot.
I put any more comics in these shelves, my wife's going to divorce me. So
okay, go Kindle then, or the reader of your choice.
What are you playing these days besides the obvious stuff you're playing for Gen Con upcoming? But what are you playing for fun? Anything?
It's basically when I find the time, it's usually going to be D&D or Call of Cthulhu. But to that said, I do enjoy stretching my legs when it comes to RPGs. I mentioned 10 Candles earlier, which is a very great game.
Good game.
Have you had a chance to play Alice is Missing yet? We may have talked about this before.
Yeah, I think you're the one that turned me on to it, actually.
Yeah, and you got to play since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty good.
So good.
Spencer Stark, he knows what he's doing when it comes to games.
Brilliant mind. I'd like to chat with him.
One thing that I went like an old game that I went back to just for fun for a little session was, do you remember the old Marvel Superheroes role playing game, the Phase Rip?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, a little bit of Phase Rip is always fun.
Wow, that's a deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a chance to play the new Marvel's system that Matt built?
I have not yet.
Oh.
I got invited a couple of times to play. I picked up the sort of primer that they put out just before they released the game itself, so I'm kind of familiar with it. It's D6 based, I believe. And I was just actually talking about this with B-Dave, as a matter of fact. Always judge a superhero role-playing game on... So, can the Hulk and Daredevil both exist in this system? Or the Hulk, Thor and Hawkeye. Like, can they cover both ends of the spectrum, and could those characters play together in a game?
Yeah.
And I think they pulled that off.
Yeah, they did.
I think about the GURPS Supers used to address it by, it was just like, it was all point buy in GURPS. So if you were playing, street level martial artist type hero, you'd be playing like, a 250 point game. If you were playing, the people who saved the world and are flying into space and all that sort of thing, then you're looking at like 500, 750, 1,000 point game.
Right.
And so, yeah, you didn't quite have that same thing of like Hawkeye and Thor could be on the same team. They just probably wouldn't be doing the same missions.
All right, that's what you're reading, what you're playing. Last quick fire, and then we're going to start heading for the door. I made this one up just for you. What's the worst prank a fellow performer's ever played on you on stage?
There haven't been many.
You're lucky.
Usually, let's see. Usually, it's something that the audience can't see. Like where. Actually, I have a story. This didn't actually happen to me. It happened to my good friend Jacob Bannigan, who is in Gordon's Big Bald Head with me, and we're actually going to be doing the Edmonton Fringe Festival.
Yeah, that's coming up right away.
Coming up, starting on the 15th of August. We'll be at the Varscona Theater with our friend Ron Peterson, who last year he wasn't able to do our Fringe show because he had a gig with Second City. So we are, all three of us reunited this year, and we'll be doing our usual show. Nice. Where what we do is we give the audience the Fringe program, the festival program. They select another show at random, and then we read the synopsis of that show out loud and improvise our own version of it. So we just read that, and then we improvise for an hour. The only basis is what was the description that was in the program. So that's a lot of fun. This year we are called Gordon's Big Bald Head, The Art of the Steal. So it's usually said last year, I think it was called The Heist is Right. And the idea is always that we steal a show and make it our own. So Jacob told me this story once. This was years ago. He was playing, I think, a butler or something similar, or maybe he was the person that was interacting with the butler. In any case, the butler gives a note to his character on stage, and it was just a letter from somebody, and he reads it, and then he has his next line. And the person playing the butler, as I recall, gave him the note, and he opens it up and. Can I swear on this?
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah.
Right. Okay, great. So he opens up the note, and the note says, "Eat my fuck." And it wasn't the swear word so much as just the ridiculous sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
a good one. It's a good one. You've never had anybody replace your glass of water with straight vodka or...
No, that has not yet happened. I worked with professionals, sir.
Yeah.
I not with japesters and jokers. No. We're very serious about our pretending.
Now, community theater, that's shit that happens. Aren't they, buddy? Okay, well, I do like to open up a little bit of space for you to highlight anything you're working on or recently that you want to promote or boost. Any signal boosting you would like to do for...
I just boosted my Fringe show. So.
Yes, you did. Yes. And I was going to ask anyways, so...
Also, I should mention, I think they have just opened up tickets. But I'm going to be back at D&D in a Castle in October and November. That is at Lumley Castle in the UK. And I think it was sold out, but a seat has opened up. So I'm not even sure which week it's in, but there should be a single ticket available for what's going to be my Halloween adventure called Liar's Night at the Yawning Portal, which I've run a few times before at D&D in a Castle. But yes, I think there is one seat available for that. And I'm going to be back in the spring of 2025, March, April. Lumley, I think they just announced me last week, so tickets, or at least the possibility of reserving a spot at my table, should be available now at dndinacastle.com.
Excellent. I will have links down in the dibbly-doo. People go get those tickets.
Oh, and, do check out on this very internet that we're on right now, on the Chaosium YouTube channel, you can check out Bookshops of Arkham and its sequel, Graveyards of Arkham, on Chaosium's YouTube channel.
Wonderful. That's it, my friend. That is what I was looking for. And as always, you kill it. Every time.
Thanks, Gerald. And thanks again for having me.
Anytime. Well,
I am sorry I will not see you at GenCon.
Next year. Next year will be my big year at all the shows.
Let's come to DragonCon. Come to DragonCon. I'll be there.
That's Toronto, right?
Atlanta.
Which one's Toronto? Anyways, regardless.
No, I think Fan Expo is in Toronto.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I'm hoping to come and catch the Fringe with Dave, so hopefully I'll come and see your show.
Oh, please do. Come on by. Oh, okay. Now, I realized I didn't plug my other Fringe show. So, if you're coming to the Fringe, and this is specifically for you, your listeners can tune out. But so for you, come to Gordon's Big Bald Head at the Varscona Theater. Oh, that's the doorbell. And that's the dogs. Hold on. So Gordon's Big Bald Head at the Varscona Theater. I'm also going to be doing a show with Mr. Colin Mockery, of Whose Line Is It Anyway fame, called Colin Mockery and Friends. I'm one of the friends. And we'll be doing that at the Garneau Theater. And on the final day of Fringe, we're going to be moving over to the Varscona Theater to do some taping of our show, possibly for use as a television project. So you could be part of the studio audience of that if you like. I think that's starting at around 7 p.m. on the last Sunday of Fringe. Beyond that, I'm going to be doing shows with Rapid Fire Theater, a show called Murder, She Improvised, which my friends from Dad's Garage Theater are bringing up here. I'm going to be doing the Irrelevant show over at the Spotlight Cabaret. We were doing an improv show called Let's Go to the Phones, which is an improvised call-in radio show, and Dynasty, the improvised soap opera at the Varscona. So I'm doing a lot of improv at the Fringe, as you may have guessed.
Yes, indeed. All right, buddy. Well, I'm going to push you out the door, but as you're heading for the door, I'm going to let you have the last word. Do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Parting words of wisdom. Always keep pretending. ABP, always be pretending. There you go.
Ah, dear wanderers, it seems our time at the tavern is once again at an end. I've just been informed that the countryside nightmares have started to stir, and I need to secure the premises before they come in and want a drink. But before we go, thank you again to Mark for all your amazing stories and insights, and as always, to you, dear listener, thank you for taking your seat at the table. Until we meet again, remember to keep creating, exploring, and sharing your stories with the world. Stay safe out there, wanderer. Your chair will be ready by the fire the next time you stop in at the Corner of Story and Game.